Howdy, hot shots. It's the Dividend Daddy, your favorite, not a financial advisor with not financial advice. And you know what it used to say on the side mirrors on cars, the little warning that it said on the mirror? Do you remember what it said? Think about it in your mind right now. It said objects in mirror may be closer than they appear, right? Well, retirement may be closer for you as well. And by the way, it never said that on mirrors. Look it up. I know you're not going to believe me. Never said that. It says objects in mirror are closer than they appear. Okay, but you and I both know that in some timeline, it said objects in mirror may be closer than they appear. Now, can you retire on $500,000? Listen, somebody asked me why I don't have spreadsheets. Okay, I don't need spreadsheets. It's in here, all right? But we're not going to go with exact numbers because round numbers are in there, but not exact numbers. With $500,000, you can actually create a sizable income. Now, I'm not necessarily talking about Ulti. I do view that as being a little bit more speculative, especially after we see the rocky road that we've been on. But there are investments out there where you can get a more consistent income and a sizable one at that. But let's just start, okay, with how much money you need to retire. The average American income right now is around $40,000 a year. Now, the average Social Security payment is $2,000 a month, okay? So you're getting about $24,000 a month just from Social Security. So if you're planning on retiring and you're eligible for Social Security and can get that sizable amount of income towards your retirement to begin with, you're already more than halfway there. $24,000 with Social Security, $40,000 for the average income. But I don't want to live on $40,000 a year, and I don't think you want to either. Now, here is something that I will say, and this is just my opinion, okay? But you take it for what it's worth. I don't think you need as much money in retirement as you do while you're working. Now, let me break that down for you a little bit further and explain why I feel that way. Number one, your kids are probably grown, right? By the time you're ready to retire, your kids are grown and moved out of the house. So in theory, you're feeding less mouths and you've got less clothes to buy for your kids. Obviously you still want to treat them now and again, but hopefully they're self-sufficient. Presumably, if you're at the stage where you've saved up $500,000, it would have been a good idea for you to pay off your house, or at least pay it down and refinance to a lower mortgage so that you could more easily afford to retire. So you get that payment out of the way. You don't really need to have 2 car payments if your household isn't working anymore. I would suggest that you would have 1 car that may have a payment, if any, just so that you have a good, reliable car that you can go on long trips with, because you're going to have more time. You might want to take road trips. But then I'd have an older, dependable car that was already paid off that I was just using for around town and for when my spouse was using the other car, right? So I wouldn't have 2 car payments. And that could, nowadays, a car payment's $600 a month. So you could get $600 a month off your plate right then. If you're not driving as much, your insurance coverage should be lower. They always ask you how many miles you're putting on a year. If you're not commuting back and forth to work, you should be able to get lower insurance premiums. So that's going to save you some money too. Now, if you're not going to work, you probably don't need your business wear or uniforms anymore. You probably don't need to eat out all the time. Okay, a lot of people eat out every day when they're working, but you really don't have to eat out every day. If you're at home, you have more time to cook, more time to prepare food, and you can get your food at a grocery store a lot cheaper. So you're going to save money on your food. You're going to save money on your kids. You're going to save money on your clothes, and you're going to save money on your transportation. And if you've played your cards right, you're saving money on your housing too. You're not going to be contributing to your company's 401k plan or whatever retirement plan they have available to you there. Now you don't have to save up for retirement because you're in retirement. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't want to continue investing, but you don't have like this arbitrary number that you have to put forth every month. So that's going to save you money. So if you're making $40,000 a year and you take $24,000 right off the top, and then you have a lower house payment, you take another $600 off of a car payment, you have lower insurance payments. I mean, that's getting pretty close to $40,000 right there. But let's just assume you make more than that, so you want to retire with a bigger income. You want to continue investing into your retirement age. Because I don't know about you, but I would actually like to die with more money than I retire with. So I'm going to continue investing even after I retire. $500,000 into even SCHD is going to get you 3.5% to 4% in dividend yields per year. You're talking about another $20,000, close to $20,000 in dividend income. Now, if I were you, I would reinvest that back in to counteract inflation. I'd at least be putting 50% of that back in. So I wouldn't want to only supplement my income by $10,000 a year. If you go to something like SPY, which is a covered call fund, you're going to get close to 12%. On $500,000, that's $60,000 a year. So you could reinvest $30,000 of that, and you'd still be getting $30,000 to go on top of your $24,000 Social Security, $46,000-ish if you're married, right? So if you get $30,000 and you put it on top of $46,000, you're making $76,000 together. You've gotten rid of a $600 a month car payment. You've gotten rid of your house payment. You've gotten rid of your kids' school charge. You don't have to pay for them to go to baseball or basketball. You don't have to pay for them to take piano lessons anymore. You don't have to do any of that. Now you can just show up and, as a grandparent and spoil the kids whenever you want to, but it's not a consistent outlay of costs. You're not contributing to the retirement program anymore, so you're saving a lot of money there. So SPY would probably be a good place to put your portion of your money that you want to draw retirement from in. If you have extra money to invest after you contribute back to combat inflation, maybe you put some just in the Qs or just in an S&P 500 fund so that you can continue to have some growth into your retirement years as well, so that you can sell that or move it to an income producing fund later and get some return off of that. If $60,000 a year isn't enough income for you off of your $500,000, then you could put it in like a QQQI, okay, where you're going to be getting close to 14%, which quick math there is going to be about $70,000. Okay, $70,000 a year off $500,000. So lots of people think that they need like $2 to $5 million to retire. But the reality is, once your expenses are trimmed down and you've already got a base to start working with, whether that's some sort of a pension from work or whether it's Social Security, you already have a good base to start from, and then you're just getting income on top of that. So if you're getting $70,000 a year, plus you and your spouse are getting $46,000 a year in Social Security, that's $116,000. That's not even an unheard of amount to save over the course of your career. And you're making six figures in retirement. You don't have to live near where your job is anymore, so you could be living somewhere less expensive. If you don't have your kids at home anymore, you could even downsize to a smaller house, which is going to cost you less in utilities, less in insurance, and less in payment. Okay, less in maintenance because it's smaller, maybe have a smaller yard. If you just want to be, traveling a lot, then you don't necessarily need to be taking care of a big property. So there's a lot of ways to cut back your income. Oh, and that's not even to mention that there's a lot of discounts when you're a senior. You can lock in property taxes in a lot of states so that they don't go up as fast or at all. So there's really a lot of ways to save money when you're ready to retire. And then there's these new covered call type investments that are pretty much hands off, that track indexes that are pretty steady for you. Now, there are higher yielding ones like we've been talking about Alti and stuff like that. But if I'm actually in retirement, I don't want to be counting on something that is so volatile. That's something for me to do while I'm still gearing up for retirement. But when I'm in retirement, I'm going to be looking to diversify into stuff that is a little bit more conservative. But I don't want something that hardly pays any more than a CD. I mean, SCHD, I do have a chunk of that right now. It's paying like 3.58% dividends or something right now, and the growth over the last year really hasn't been anything to write home about. I can get that in a treasury. right? And that's not going to be enough for me to live off of and also combat inflation. I mean, even at the inflation numbers they're quoting right now of like 4%ish, I think that they were saying 4 to 5% last I heard, but really we're having like an 8 or 9% inflation rate, and you can tell that by your grocery bill. So you definitely want to put money back into your investments so that your income can continue to grow, so that your standard of living doesn't shrink the older you get, right? You want to continue having that growth. But when you need less money than you needed while you were preparing to retire, and then you also have additional disposable income from your investments to put back into growth type funds, or even just reinvest those back in to generate more dividend income so that you can get a bigger income every month. I feel like $500,000 is a really nice starting point to go along with whatever other type of income you have when you first retire. And it's just going to build on that as long as you're smart with it. Now, are those funds guaranteed to keep producing that type of yield? No, they're not. Are they guaranteed not to go down? No, they're not. And that's one of the reasons why you want to be reinvesting part of that distribution back into those funds so that you can continue to have stability with your principal value and also the potential for that higher income and more growth. Okay, so why don't you put down in the comments down below, tell me how much money you think you need to retire, and if it's changed your mind at all when you think about actually cutting expenses in order to help you meet that goal so that you can be working on it from both ends. All right, talk to you later.